Do we need to turn this on?
Now it's on. The light's on. And it's on the one all the way to the right.
Yeah.
The figure 8.
Yeah.
I've got the volume control. The gain, I think we're okay. That looks pretty good.
It's not popping off at the top.
Yeah, it's not too hot.
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 Yeah.
If it gets too hot, you can turn it down. Back it down.
Where? How?
The gain
Okay.
button. If I had an Allen wrench, I'd tighten this table up.
Is that what it needs?
Yeah, there's some Allen screws. Got these tables for $25 each
Nice.
in Palm Springs.
And they're cool now. Yellow.
Yeah, they pop.
Pop.
Oh man. Cohort that I'm a part of has been really good.
It's been good.
Yeah, it's been good.
You got a little sawdust.
No, not my Dodger hat. Oh no.
You guys just get a brush. There you go. That worked.
My World Series hat, man.
Where'd you get that?
Christian got it.
It's cool.
Yeah, got one for the Lakers too.
He knows what size you wear it.
He asked me, and I
Cool.
gave it to him. So
I used to wear a fitted hat all the time. I was a 7 3/8.
7 3/8.
That's great minds.
Great brains.
Great brains.
Our craniums think alike. Yeah, the core.
Oh, I think it's going.
Yeah, I got here. We're not quite live.
This is live. All right, let me.
Oh, we are. It always does that to me.
There we are. We made it, guys. We made it.
And it's 4 minutes early. See, it's not supposed
No.
to do that.
All right, we'll give it a second. Let's tell you have any jokes.
No, I don't have any jokes.
Nobody's tuning in yet, anyways. So.
Okay, but I can for posterity. Should I tell about the announcements, or should I wait?
Well, if people are gonna tune in. Oh, one person came on. Is that you?
That's me. I'm watching us. It's
Yeah,
sad
no.
when you're the only one watching yourself.
One day
got-
we're gonna look back. They said.
One day we're gonna double our audience, and we'll have 2 people. Yeah, probably start because people go in, they'll be watching us do nothing.
Right.
So,
Welcome.
yeah, welcome to Take 2. Before we get started in our discussion, some things that we want to let you know about. Even though we have just opened up, we are actually going to be closing down again. Crazy, I know. And the reason being is because there are a few people who I listen to and respect concerning the COVID and what's happening. One of them is Michael Osterholm. You can look him up if you'd like to. And he is talking about how things are really going to escalate here and how it is going to be pretty intense. He said the cases are going to quadruple, and it's going to overwhelm our hospitals and care facilities once again. And he called it actually COVID hell that we're moving into. And here's someone who has been consistent from the time I heard him back in March. I think he's been consistent. I have appreciated that he has actually said sometimes that, well, we didn't expect this. It's done things that we didn't expect, and it's doing things that we're not sure, truly aware of. And so he's been honest, but him saying that things are really going to escalate and it's going to be really bad has made me want to rethink what we do. And so I would rather be safe and keep people safe than just open up for that sake. I am sending out a newsletter with all the information of why we're doing this as well. And so know that we care more about you and about people than we do ministry, right? It's not so important that people get here and come to Genesis. It's important that we are able to communicate important things to you, and we can do that at your home on YouTube. If you, however, need to be here, there are a number of people who are going through some pretty heavy things, right? I mean, there's a lot of people suffering with depression, high anxiety issues, addictions where they need to be around people. If you are in a situation that you need to be here, we will be here for you. We're not going to ask you why you need to be here, so you don't have to spill the beans. If you're going through something and you just need to be here, show up and we will be here for you. We are asking that people wear masks. We are going to be socially distanced. If we have too many people in the room on a Sunday, we will put people outside under a canopy with a speaker. We care about people's health, and we want people to be safe. And so we are closing down to those who just want to come, but we are open to those who need to come, if that makes sense. That makes sense?
Makes sense.
And so with that being said, sorry if there's any confusion that we have caused by opening and closing again. Gosh, 1 week and then it happens, kind of just like our opening day for, we just did a grand opening too for the workspace. Also, the human library that we were planning to do next Sunday, that's been postponed. We are going to do that again, just not this Sunday. And we're just on hold. And that'll kind of lead us into, I guess, our conversation here tonight. Last Sunday, I talked about loving through participation. And it really is about acting out the things that we believe. The week before, I talked about unity, how it's really a mysterious thing, but we are connected. Jesus prayed in John 17, Father, that they, meaning us, would be one, even as he and his Father are one. And so it's a very mystical verse, really. It's pulling us into God unifying all things and working all things for a united purpose. He's creating a new heaven, a new earth, and he is wanting to join us in that, and he's wanting unity in that. And I think the idea of now participating in that is really a next step. Maybe we can start off with, what are some things that you cannot learn and actually do? In other words, what are some things you cannot just think about it and actually do them? Can you think of some things?
Yeah, you brought up some examples during the service. You said, what did you say? Well, the surgeon situation. But I think there's just, even if you learned, what I start thinking about when I hear that is like more like how you could be one with somebody and not know, or like the fact that like God's telling us that he wants to be one with us and Jesus is one. So I'm trying to connect what you're saying with learning like something without doing it. But because my mind went somewhere else as soon as you said it. But could you explain to me where you're headed?
Well, I think of like riding a bicycle.
Okay,
right?
I guess you say no. Okay.
Yeah, like you can say, okay, you need to pedal.
Yeah.
And you need to steer.
Yeah.
And you need to do those together, to keep your balance. And you can talk about all those things, but until you get on a bike and actually start riding it, you won't know how to ride a bike.
Got it. So things that you couldn't learn unless you did.
Exactly.
Got it. There's
just
educational. Yeah.
Cooking, playing instruments.
Yeah.
Right? But then the natural progression is actually loving.
Right.
Right. You can't really effectively love without participating in life with somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where it's going. That's what we're leading to, is if we are going to love people and if we are united with people, then we have to participate in life with people.
Yeah. I was listening to this Furtick sermon earlier, and he was like kind of naming all the things that Jesus or God referred to himself as. Like one being like a mirror, honey, water, bread, these things that double-edged sword, like his word, like just different metaphors for him and his word and who he is. And Steve Furtick said something cool, like, you can't, any of these things, they need to be put into action for them to be used. And
Yeah.
I think that's the same thing with love. It's the same thing with anything. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't digest the bread, if you don't look in the mirror and come back and experience what you're doing, like, if it's not impacting you at all, then it's not useful. So it doesn't matter what God says he is if you don't participate in it. I think that's yeah.
And the whole idea of participation is learning as we go, right?
Right.
You don't jump on a bike and know how to do BMX jumps or
Right.
whatever, right? Or get on a skateboard and now you can do kick flips.
Right.
I know the word. I can't do one to save my life, right? But it takes actually learning how to do this once you start doing it. And I think life is a lot like that with people. You and I, when we first met, gosh, I don't know how many years ago now, it started off with a conversation. I think it started off with coffee, and then it went into breakfast, and then it started doing some things together, and then we started kind of communicating with each other, and then having ideas, having dreams, and we started, kind of playing off of each other's, visions that started to develop into the relationship that we have today. And it's true with anybody. It's true with, Alex, true with Corrine, true with our friends, the people we are close to. It took time to develop those things. It's not something just like, hey, what are the things you're interested? Write them down, send them to me, and I'll see if we can be friends, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. It has to be participating with. And I think that's been a hard thing for me and learning, because I came from a place where I felt like if I just learned information about God, in this realm about God, if I just learned enough, if my theology was good, then I would have this relationship down.
Yeah.
And there was a disconnect with me. It's like, okay, I'm going to get this thing with God good. I'm going to study. I'm going to, learn all this theology, and then I'm going to know about God.
Right.
And really, for me, I didn't start knowing about God until I started interacting more with people.
Yeah, that's good. And I think it's like that whole Goodwill Hunting scene where, like he's calling people out for like knowing too much book knowledge, and was like, where'd you read that one? And he's like quoting the books because he's read them all. He's like this genius.
Yeah.
But it's that with all of us in Christianity. Unfortunately, like the way I grew up too, that's how it was fed to you. It was like, learn a lot, read a lot, just know more, and then God will show up. But then, like when you read Jesus' life, you're like, oh, he participated in life and sat in with people, and obviously he was Jesus, and then we're learning about Jesus. But he was like, obviously giving us an example of what good looked like,
Yeah.
And it wasn't sit there and read the whole day. You become spiritually fat like that, and you become, overweight.
Yeah. Love has to, have this posture of participating, right? It's a way of being in the world, and Jesus had a way of being in the world that ultimately is defined by the cross. It was defined by giving of himself, right? And then John, his disciple, tells us in 1 John 3:16, by this we know love, right? By this, because he laid down his life for us, giving us an example that we ought to lay down our lives for others as well, right? And so now love becomes something that is a practice. It becomes something that is evidenced by the things that we do.
Right.
And that's a big deal, because the other way, if it's just this mental assent, then it's easy to start having a us versus them mentality. Right? Which, gosh, I'm guilty. I've been guilty of in so many ways. And that's the one thing we don't see with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
We don't see, we see the religious Pharisees who were saying it's us, and Jesus saying, yeah, no, that's not it, right? I'm with them. And he was with, the fishermen, with the tax collectors, with the prostitutes, with so many people that were considered marginalized. And Jesus was saying, no, I am with them, right? And why? Because I'm living with them. I'm communicating with them. I'm loving them by being with them.
Right.
And so the question then is, how do we do that?
Yeah.
You know, here's my frustration now. How do we do that in a time of pandemic
Yeah.
when we can't physically be with people? You know,
I think it's still because you said a couple of things. I mean, you got loaded right there because you said, you know, he didn't create us versus them, but he did show that he was with them. And I think there's like that understanding of like almost when me and Ava were having this conversation today where she was saying, I can't win. I whatever I post, I can't win. And I said, well, is that the point? You know,
Yeah.
is that the point to win? You know, because if we are really concerned with bringing positivity in this world and loving people at this like extreme kind of radical level of love that like Jesus talks about is winning the point, you know, like
Right.
and on top of that you're talking about social media, you know, like the absolute like arena for not winning, you know, like it's designed for interaction, and if you were posting something to get affirmation, I don't know if that is even healthy. That might be the beginning of the conversation, but I think to answer your question, how do we do it in a pandemic? I think it's still that classic answer of like he would love first. You know, what would Jesus do? He would love first. And I think what does that look like in arenas? It might mean sitting there with wrestling with those things that you didn't want to do or that you've been running away from. Maybe the groups of people you've been avoiding. The groups of people you ran away from and now feel shameful because you ran away from. Like there's all kinds of things you could wrestle with. You know, leading up to this thing.
And I think with that comes the idea of being vulnerable.
Yeah.
It comes also, you know, love's not afraid to fail. In fact, fail is a part of participation, right? When you get on a bike, you probably fall off a few times.
Right.
If you try the skateboard, you know, you're on your butt a few times. If you try loving, it's going to happen too.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to happen where you're trying to connect with someone and you don't do it well, or they don't respond in the way you would hope they would, and then it's hurtful, right? Because,
Yeah.
oh man, they shot me down or whatever it is. But failure is part of this process. Right? We have to be willing to put ourselves out there, just like we did last Sunday. You know, I mean, yeah, we're going to meet again. And it's like, oh, no, we're not. You know,
Yeah.
we're not going to do. And in some ways, I mean, I did feel like I shouldn't have done that. I was telling Corrine last night. We were in bed, and it's like, you know, she's about to sleep, and I go, I shouldn't have opened on Sunday. You know, I'm thinking in my head it was a mistake to do that, but you know what? I'd rather try something and fail at it than not try anything.
Yeah.
I'd rather take the step and see if it does connect, and if it doesn't, well, then I learned not to connect that way.
Right.
But maybe there's another way to connect.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
And I think that's sometimes we don't do anything because we're afraid to fail.
Right.
Right. And that'll leave us in a place where we do nothing.
Absolutely. And there's no learning in that. There's no all the stuff we're just talking about. You can't fly the plane, you know, without flying the plane. So like to learn properly is to fail a million times, and I think that's like just part of it. You know, we're no experts in any of this. We don't know. Nobody knows what's going on. This is crazy. It's crazy. Like we could literally just do podcasts every week and be like, "This is crazy." Just keep on saying it like 30 times.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I had heard in one of the podcasts about the pandemic is that if there's any model that goes past, I think 4 months it's like it's already wrong.
Right.
You know, it might have even been 4 weeks. I don't remember, but yeah, if we're not moving, it's hard to steer. Right. If we're not in the car driving, we're just rustling against, you know, the pavement. And I think that's part of this process of love is that you got to get in the car, you got to start moving and start going in a direction. One of the things that in a cohort that I'm a part of, talk about leaning into the discomfort.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you were talking about like the people, you know, like maybe Ava with, you know, I can't win with whoever. What is the group that irks you?
Right.
right? How do you lean into that group in a healthy way? I'll just, yeah, maybe you can help me on that one. I mean, really, how do you lean into, so say, and I'll be open here. I have a hard time with, people I have the hardest time with are Christians. I have a hard time with Christians who use the Bible as a book of, this is how everything is supposed to be, and it's kind of a book of information of how you're supposed to live your life, instead of a book of inspiration to help you live a life. And I hear or see posts on those things, and it irks me. And so my cohort's telling me I need to lean into that to learn how to love in that. So give me some thoughts on that. What would you tell me?
I think Peter Rollins said some really cool stuff the other day.
Pete.
Yeah, I love Pete. Shout out to Pete. Oh, well, he said that war is the basically the absence of conflict.
Right.
You heard them say that?
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool because I didn't understand it at first. I'm like, wow, what a cool. Because you're like, well, how is war the absence of conflict when we think of war as conflict?
Right.
And what he's saying is it's not conflict at all, because conflict would mean actually meeting with these people every week and trying to find a truth.
It's going
that's
again.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
There is no war. Would be the past the symptoms already. It's like you had no option.
When you
to
have more
agree.
Discourse, then it results into the violence.
Right. So I think it's like leaning in is actually taking more courage. Leaning in is the thing that is going to require more time. It's going to require more effort. It's going to require more sacrifice, dying to self. The time itself, I think, is what scares people of the conflict when you talk about it in this sense, because you're like, why do I want to dedicate energy and time to someone who, he also said, like, I don't have an interest in placing myself with flat earthers, for example, like because I don't get any like at this point we're both not learning, there's and should there be a war? No, but there should be a protection of your energy until you could come to a place where maybe you're talking about something that's not it, and the love starts to come in, because I think that's the goal. But yeah, I think finding that healthy balance. I don't think everybody deserves your time and energy, but I know that everybody is worthy of your love, and because you're worthy of love. And I think that looks different in every arena. So with that said, to answer your question, it would be to find a way to love them, however that looks like,
That's so good. I mean, not everyone deserves, and I don't know if deserves is the right, not everyone should have your attention, right? It's not a matter of deserving, like worthy of it. It's a matter of should you give that time to something that isn't going to produce something beneficial. I think one of the things that Paul told the church in Corinth, it's like, you don't need any more teachers. I'm not a teacher, I'm your father. Right? And sometimes we want to be people's teachers. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I want to teach you where you're wrong.
When they didn't ask.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're not asking you to be their teacher, and that's not our goal. If anything, I need to be your brother.
Right.
I need to be, in Paul's case to them, it was, I'm your father. I need to be someone who's more in relationship to you than someone who's trying to give you something that I feel you need.
Right.
Because that seems to put you in a position if you're not asking to be taught, right?
Right.
I did this again. I think I mentioned it Sunday. I don't usually, if someone doesn't ask me for help with dog training, I don't give it. I saw this guy, and he had this beautiful Mastiff, and I've been training Mastiffs for the last few years, and they're beautiful dogs, but they're powerful dogs, right? And he had some things on that were just wrong, right? As a dog trainer, I'm like, oh man, that collar's not right. Oh man, what are you doing, And so I went up to the guy, and it was like, a beautiful dog, man. Yeah, I've been a trainer. I've trained Mastiffs. One of the things you should do is have and immediately I just, like, him and his wife were just like, I was
get away.
I was stepping in, I was asking, their daughter out for a date or something. It was just it came across as invasive and problematic because they didn't ask.
Right.
Even though it's what they needed to hear, they weren't in a place to hear it.
Have you seen those commercials where they're like at the Home Depot or something? I don't know exactly what the commercial is for, insurance or something. And there's a guy teaching people how not to turn into their parents. You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen.
There's it's like a class, but they're doing it in real life. So they're like in Home Depot, and he goes, he sees somebody with blue hair walk by, and they're like, and the guy that's teaching is like, don't look, don't do it. And they're like, it's blue. Like they just want to say something, and the next shot is like some guy tinkling with something like a plumbing device. He goes, actually, he starts to try to give advice. He goes, he didn't ask you. And then he just it's just like this thing as we go older, we think we've acquired so much knowledge that we have to share this. And then even, like I said, there's like that thing in sales where they say the right information at the wrong time is still the wrong information. And I think, honestly, that's what it comes down to. Some of us are, even if we are handing out some gems, if someone's not in the position there needs to be life done with that person first. Earned respect, a earned, what do you call this? There's like when you earn the right, earn the right to speak into their life. You have no right at this point to do it, even if it's the right advice, it's, and they didn't ask you, so.
Yeah, and the only way you can find out is to be there with them through time and spend. So if you don't see someone, you don't talk to someone at all, and they post something on Instagram, and then you decide, oh, now I'm going to be your father. Now I'm going to, Luke, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. Well, you haven't been there, and now you're going to be there. I'm finding that even in positions of leadership, before I ask someone to do something, have I just talked to them and find out how they're doing? Right? And I think I heard Erwin saying something like this. It needs to be like, I need to ask you 5 times how you're doing first before I ask you to do something. Otherwise, you think I'm just here to tell you what to do, right? Instead of I actually need to know. And of course, that's got to be genuine. It's not like I'm keeping a track, okay, did I ask Brian 4 or 5 times? Okay, now I can ask you something. Right? But if I'm just calling or just talking to you, or we're just having lunch or whatever, and we have that relationship, well, now if I say, hey, can you take care of this? It's not like I'm using you, right? It's like, no, that this is a reciprocal thing. We're in relationship with one another. And I think there's so little of that done on social media. It's all just one way. So I'm telling you, I'm the dog trainer telling you how to train your dog when you didn't ask me. Right? And so it doesn't work. Participation takes time.
Right.
There's no way around it. But now we're limited in how we can spend time.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I had a dream the other day. It was just, how dreams are. It's like, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think I was at my son Daniel's church, and there was like a singing thing going on, and I think that happened because you talked to me about maybe doing like a worship thing with Randy, and so I think that's kind of where it grew from. And then Nikki was there, and there was someone saying, oh, I want to do this, but we need someone to do this other part, and it was like a backup singing part. And Nikki stepped up and says, I'd be happy to do the backup. And I remember thinking, that was so cool. She didn't want to take the lead. She wanted to take up the backup. And I forget what else happened in the dream, but that was kind of like the whole dream. And so I woke up and I thought, wow, that was cool. I mean, I had a feeling like that was a neat thing. And I thought immediately, I need to write Nikki and just let her know that this is what I had and this is the role she played, and I thought it was a great thing. Right? Because I'm not going to see her, and I'm not going to see a lot of people who I think about, but maybe what I can start doing is just reaching out to them to a text.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate this about you. Right? Hey, I thought about you. How are you doing? Right? And maybe this is a way we can start participating in a pandemic. Because our circles have to remain small, right? I mean, we have to stay in these bubbles. I mean, you're in my bubble, so whoever's in your bubble's in my bubble, I guess, right? And so we've got these bubbles, and I don't know, they say 3 families, whatever. I know I'm trying to do what I can to stay in a bubble, right? I'm trying to stay distant from people and I'm not going to any parties or anything like that or big events. But I still need to contact people.
Right.
I
And
still
that's
need
the
to
way I
participate.
think we can.
Yeah.
We can love. And then, and I think that's the easy stuff, you know? Like when we're talking about those other things that were like hard, where you're like investing in people you don't want to, or God's calling you to and you feel you've been shunning them, or maybe you left, you know, a group of people and you feel like I should be a part, but I don't. Now I feel weird. You know, like the things God's actually like placing on your heart, reaching out to, I think that should be like the kind of should, you know, the easy stuff, you know, like thinking about someone, hey, I'm checking on you. I have a group of friends that just randomly text me every once in a while. That's a big, you know, it's a big thing, you know, because it's nice. You know?
And you're good at that. I mean, you do that to a lot of people, I feel
That's
like.
right, yeah. And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking too easily where I said you should, but I honestly feel that's the easy part, to check on the people you love. And then the next step of maybe moving into thinking about who you don't love, who would be harder to text, who needs you at this time without exerting yourself completely. So,
and then making it a safe space for people to be real, people to fail,
right?
You know, people to be open to you. I mean, I have some friends who I'm close to, who I can open up and share important things with. I have people who call me when they've had, you know, serious things happen in their life, and they know I'm not going to judge them, right? I'm not going to come down on them and say, well, you know better than that. We're going to have a real conversation, and yeah, we might talk about some mistakes that they've made or whatever, but they know that I care about them first, right? Yeah. And I think that's the idea of participation. You know, if we're participating with someone in life, we're there through the good and through the bad, you know, through the hard and through the easy times. You know, this morning in the cohort that I was on, the Zoom call I was on, we were talking about unity and the things, how we are supposed to be one and together with one another. And, you know, I had brought up that thing with the quantum entanglement that I've shared before, you know, and I talked about these things, and I was all excited, and Matt, the other guy, was all excited about it because he had a lot of information on that. And then one lady named Therese said, so how can you do that, or is there someone you think about that you should have this kind of unity with? And immediately I thought of my wife, right? Immediately I thought, well, yeah, my wife, Corinne. And then it was Matt asked me the question, well, how can you do that? Yeah. Right? And then I'll get back to you, think about it, right? And so then I'm thinking about it, and it was just really cool because it had to do a lot of participation, right? Unity happens when I'm aware of what's happening in her, I'm aware of the dynamics between us, and I step into that with maybe even a word that I say. You know, I'm feeling like you're a little frustrated right now, and I'm not quite sure how I should respond, right?
But imagine walking to the Mastiff guy, saying that, the guy that you just met their dog and was like, you feel frustrated, I know, but, you know, because you earned the right with Corinne, you spent enough time with her, and I think that's how the oneness begins. Yeah. The time with God, the time with your spouse, the time with that friend. There's just no other way. There's just really there's no shortcuts there, you know? Yeah. And there's those magic moments where you might run into a stranger and you might have a moment, but that's not sustainable. Yeah. You know, I was eating the other day and Alex was like, I was like, oh, could you do me a favor? Could you bring me some water? And she was like, that's funny. I was just about to grab you some because I saw you didn't have any. I was like, all right. And I go, also like a napkin, and she already had like the napkin. You know, it was like that moment where you're like, we're spending a lot of time together for her to anticipate my needs, to already feel where I was going. And I think God has that same relationship with us when we're in tune, when we're listening, spending time with him. I think there's like, today I was leaving my house and there was a big jug of water. And something was telling me to grab this water, and I didn't. And on the way to work, a guy in front of me, his car overheated. He stopped, and there was no sight, so he had to stop the whole thing. And I said, if I had that big jug of water, he could have filled up, you know, at least his, you know, because he had this little tiny bottle of water. And I'm like, it could have been for him. And I don't know if that's what we're talking about, but I do know there's ways that God is able to speak to us in different
Yeah.
ways, and normally it's like in word and prayer. But
No, I think that's totally it. I think the whole idea of unity and participation go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
We're in tune. If we're in tune with God, we're in tune with one another. We're in tune with creation around us. You know, I can see you sensing, because God is knowing you're going to drive this way, see this guy,
Right.
and you know, now if you would have just said, I need to get this jug of water, and then when you're there, it's like, oh, here, I'm participating in something, because you're unified with what God's doing, right? I mean, that's kind of what our conversation was today, and even like you talking about Alex getting you the water and the napkin. I feel like Jesus was so in tune with people that he knew what the Pharisees were thinking, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just this, you know, mystical thing. I think he was so in tune with the unity of what's happening with God and with people that he could see someone. And we see these things. We know these things. They happen in so many ways. Dogs are so intuitive. They pick up on our body posture, our tone. They pick up on the scent that comes out of us, right? I mean, dogs can be trained to see when your blood sugar goes low and they bring you insulin. What if there is this ability to participate in life with people on such a level that we are able to be sensitive to if they need water, bring them a napkin, take the water there, right?
And I believe that really could happen, and I do that with my friends. We see today. I was talking to my friend, and he's having a rough day, and I was able to see and feel what he needed, and that's not through accident. That's through years and years of friendship, and and that's easy. We can tell when each other is down. When I know when I shouldn't be bothering you, you know, I shouldn't leave you, let you work, and I think that the more we get to know each other, the easier it is to decipher those things. I don't think that's like a strange concept, you know. Like
No,
that's like,
and it's so interesting that, you know, right now, I mean, I think you could look at it with the quantum entanglement. It's actually a scientific kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? This is like a natural process,
Right.
where sometime it might have been thought of as, you know, mystical or whatever,
Spooky
science. But it's actually something that could take place in the reality of
Right.
our daily lives. But for it to happen, there has to be that participation. This really is about how we live a life of love for one another. Because if I don't care about you, I'm not going to lean into your life,
yeah,
right? And participation is really love in action,
yeah.
you know.
There's cost to it, you know.
Yeah.
There's that part. I think a lot of people willingly don't love because of the cost, you know.
Yeah.
There's there's that end too. You know, they're like, I know I'm going to really change my life, and that's the kind of stuff that I think we don't talk about a lot, because it's I remember in Isaiah, it's like they said Jesus said, or I forgot who was speaking, but he said, "Come with me," you know. And he said, I don't have any money," and then the guy said, "Well, you don't need money, but it will cost you your will, your." There's like a list of things, you know. But these things are going to be costed because you're following me, you know. So I was like, I think there's still that the pick up your mat and like kind of talk, you know, like we talk about how easy it is to love, but then we're like, then you forget there's a cost, you know, and something has to die so another thing can live. That's the law of how I think love exists. The example Jesus gave us of what love looks like, and I'm in for it. You know, once you realize that's the road that you want to live, it's like, what else is there? You know, everything else feels shallow and not valuable. You know, it's just So I'd rather give.
I think a lot of people who have been hurt, right, wounded in relationships, it paralyzes us in our ability to participate, because we bring into this relationship the hurt of the last relationship.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're guarded. And I think, you know, I know of some people who that has happened, where it feels like they've been stunted in their ability to really live with other people.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you got to get counseling to kind of get to the root of those things and find out that you've put up a wall and you're unable to participate because of this that's happened, and now that's something that's keeping you from moving forward, and that's a tragedy, right? Because relationships, I mean, it's not a accident that Jesus said, here's the greatest commandment: love God and each other, right? It's one.
Yeah.
They go together. If you don't love God who you can't see, you can't tell me you love your brother who you can see, right? You have to work in both of those realms, and if we are not, then something's wrong. Something's happening where we are hurting ourselves by not actually participating in life with people,
And I feel that we are aware of that when our motives are wrong, when our intentions are wrong, when we're doing things outside of our character to accomplish a goal, when we are being manipulative or greedy or selfish, any of those things that we've all felt, and we've looked back and said that's not how people are supposed to be loved. That's I'm hurting, I'm hurting people, and I think that's where the oneness becomes important with God and with each other, because there's a certain level of accountability you can't have by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's that accountability is the seed necessary for growth. There's so many times that I've had friends like put me in positions where maybe my morals would have to be questioned, or I've hurt somebody else to get something. And there's a point in my life where I was okay with that, But then you start realizing that people aren't like a transaction, that you can't get that back, and you realize that Jesus is really after us, was really after people, and how that has to be the most important thing. Because if the $1 million showed up and you're okay with trading the $1 million for the person, then it's like, then it's almost like Jesus, like, we were this close, we had something, we were one, and it's like the order you put it in, because the $1 million's not bad. Loving people, that's the thing, like that's it's almost like there's no other. But it's like that our natural self does not lean towards just loving on folks. It's just not as easy as like we talk about, like Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso. If you guys don't know who Ted Lasso is, he's on. Sam put me up on this show. It's called Ted Lasso. It's on Apple TV, and so if you get a chance to watch it, just this chronic optimist who's like constantly pouring good into the world, and people try to knock him down and knock him over and sabotage him, but it's like you can't. There's no.
And he ends up winning everybody, right?
There's no law against that. I mean, it's like, it's a Jesus story in itself.
I know. It's like when you sent me a text, Ted Lasso is making me a better human being.
Yeah, it did. My self-talk is way better now.
Yeah.
I told myself today, I was like, you're healthy, you're happy, you're beautiful. I was saying those things. I think it had something to do with the interview I watched last night too, but talk to yourself better, because I think that's a good thing too, to start. Love yourself. Could you love yourself? Have you loved yourself lately? What does that look like? Because I think if you can't start there, how are you going to start to know what love with God and love with people looks like? So,
how can you participate with others if you can't participate with yourself in a healthy way?
Right.
Yeah. And I think that whole idea of self-love, there's so many nuances to that, because, isn't, narcissism self-love? I mean, well, it can be, right? But there's a healthy conversation, right? There's a healthy conversation of who you are, and there's an unhealthy conversation of who you are, right?
That's like, you could love yourself unhealthily.
Yeah.
And narcissism is one of those things.
Yeah.
That's not.
And then another, you can think you're just nothing and you're worthless, and that's an unhealthy conversation, right? You have value not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Right. God loves you not because you're good, because God is good, and He sees.
But humility, from some people's view, could sound like that. Like, I'm nothing. I'm not. You're like, that's why do you talk about yourself like that? You're like, there's stuff to wrestle with there. for another day. But I
Yeah.
think there's
Humility doesn't think less of yourself. It just does. It thinks of yourself less.
right.
I think
That's
kind of attitude.
That's good stuff. Yeah, and I think loving yourself. That's a good place to start for some of us. You haven't loved yourself in a while, and that I've at least I've felt that I've been able to love people properly after I've learned to love myself. I think have people experience in different orders, sure, but as for me, like I didn't love myself, and I found loving other people made other people happy.
Yeah.
And
What do you
yeah,
mean
it's
when
like-
you say didn't love yourself? What did that look like? What
Yeah,
kinda-
sure. I think I didn't think I was worthy of love. Maybe my relationship with my dad in particular was caused me to see myself as maybe not a good kid, not a good son, something like that. So it leaked into my adulthood where I was like, I don't think
Yeah.
I almost said that word. I'm not worthy, so why should anybody else pay attention? I can honestly say finding art helped with that, and I think when you find your passion, you become more aware of your worth and your place, and it's in a weird way you're
I
like
feel like you have something to give, right? Something to contribute.
you become you feel like you become valuable. And there's an
Yeah.
unhealthy thing doing that route too, because you become so praised all the time. You start putting your worth in the thing, and then because the whole point of finding your passion, finding who you are, loving yourself is all supposed to be like eventually pointed towards God.
Yeah.
Thank you, rather than how I did it, or wherever.
Yeah, it's that whole idea. Where does creativity come from?
Right.
Right. If creativity is something that God gives, and then we give back, it's kind of this cycle, right?
Right.
So it's like, okay, I've been given this creativity, this ability to, speak, to paint, to play, to communicate, whatever it is. I have this ability to do that because it's been given to me, right? It's part of my DNA or whatever. And now I'm able to use that in a way that gives back.
Right.
And so it should be this kind of cyclical thing where I get and I give, I get and I give, and I get and I give. And God is now honored in that. God's never demanding that of us. It's something that we naturally give because it's kind of born. Right. And birth is something that happens. When you get pregnant, you give birth. And whether we realize it or not, we are all pregnant with talent. We are all pregnant with creativity. We are pregnant with the image of God waiting to come out, and we are needing to find an avenue, right?
Sounds like you're getting deep, guys.
But that's participating. That's participating in life, right? I have to find an avenue to give what I was created for. And participation is that. And all those things are love, right? When you do your poetry, it's love coming out of you. It's something you love, something you're passionate. It's something that, I've been there watching people watch you. And when you say something, everyone's like, oh, it's like, man, snap, that reached me. That's participating, right? We're now participating in what you're giving, and you're giving something of yourself.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing. You should go see one of his shows.
Performing arts is non-existent.
Can't do it right now. So we're going to make avenues where it can be done.
We will.
We got to do that.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And this is just one of them. We're participating with two people.
One of those is you.
No, I'm off now. So there's two people.
Thank you, two people.
Yeah.
Well, people will watch it later.
Yeah, they'll watch it later. And again, we're doing this to hopefully be helpful. And, the whole idea of Take Two was to be able to have more conversation with people, which is unfortunately it wasn't able to happen.
Is there some?
No, we see a couple of people. Eileen's probably one of those people. Hi, Eileen, if you're on there still. But whoever else is there. The idea was eventually to have people be able to ask questions and us interact with that. And maybe we'll find a way to do that more effectively. Because I'd still love to do that. I mean, they could do it on YouTube.
Could they? Did anybody do it?
Yeah, if you're listening and you have a question, you could. The only thing is you got to write it out.
Right.
But maybe there's something else. We'll try and figure out a way. Maybe we can do something even like on Instagram Live at the same time where someone could talk to us.
Yeah.
And then we can answer it there. We'll figure something out.
Okay.
We'll be creative, but we want to participate in life with you and with one another. And we're not going to let pandemic stop us. We don't need permission to engage in life. What we need is opportunity, and they're around us. We just need to tap into them. Right? So we're not sheep just sitting back doing nothing. We're looking for opportunities to do things well, and that's what we're going to do. Any last words?
Live long and prosper.
Thank you guys for joining us. Lord bless you. We're grateful again for this time, and for those who are watching this at the end. Remember, we are no longer going to be gathering together on Sundays except for those who need to be here. If you need to be here, we are here for you. But if you can watch at home, please stay home and be safe. We are trying to stop this pandemic from spreading. So wear a mask, wash your hands, stay distance, be aware of who you're around, and participate in loving one another. We love you guys.